All right, my American friends. For this series, I want to talk about our House of Representatives and who is serving us and should they be allowed to continue to serve us on Jennifer's Journal. All right, so we're going to begin the series with Ilhan Omar. In our House of Representatives, we have 435 members. All are elected by their citizens in their respective districts. Omar serves, or at least pretends to serve, in the 5th District of Minnesota, which is Minneapolis and its suburbs. So in 2016, from none other than the media, it came to light that in 2009, she possibly married her brother, Ahmed Nur Saeed Elmi. Not really sure if it's her brother, but she did marry this guy. And the only way to really prove that he is her brother is through a DNA test, which I really don't think we're going to get. So they got married in 2009. She told no one. And, I don't think we would even know about it if it weren't for the media finding the marriage certificate and saying, hey, Omar, what's this? You got some explaining to do, when she was running for House of Representatives in Minnesota. So, of course, she says that he's not her brother, but I think anybody would deny those claims, right? So here's my thing. Why keep it a secret? Why tell no one for several years unless you're hiding something? And is the thing that you're hiding the fact that he's your brother? So, because I thought marriages were supposed to be like a happy thing. I thought it was supposed to be a happy celebration that your friends and your family got to, kind of be a part of. So why get married in secret? Tell nobody. For several years, and I mean not like several years. When the first marriage that she had, which really wasn't a legally binding marriage in America, it was more of a Muslim thing, but still there was like 150 people in attendance. It was a huge celebration. So why make that one such a big deal and not your actual marriage? Because there was no celebration with Elmi. And I just can't help but wonder why. How come? And not only did she marry Elmi in 2009, she actually got back with her ex in 2012. So she was married to Elmi from 2009, and they supposedly split in 2011. By 2012, she was back with her ex, and she was having a third child. She had a third child with her ex while she was still married to Elmi. She even filed joint tax returns with her ex while she was married to Elmi. So why stay married for an extra 5 or 6 years when you're clearly moving on with your life with your ex-husband or your ex-partner? You're having a third child, you're filing joint tax returns, you're living with this man, but you're still married to this other guy? Like, it makes zero sense. Unless you're delaying a divorce so your husband could reap some benefits of the marriage. Because, say, he's not a citizen and maybe he wanted to do things in America that could only be afforded to citizens, or say someone who is married to a citizen. So some people speculate that she married her brother so he could gain citizenship, so that he could go to school and take out some student loans, which Elmi did, or some sort of rehab because he was living an unfavorable life in the UK. And I'm not talking about like drugs or anything. I think maybe he was just an embarrassment. And so that's where the unfavorable comes in, and, they shipped him over to the United States. And I don't know, the whole rehab thing doesn't really make sense to me. I think it's either so he could have citizenship or so that he could reap some of the benefits of being married to a citizen, like, go to school, take out loans. The last I heard, he's hanging out on some beach somewhere, just kind of laying low. So there is a photo that's kind of suspect. It's of like 3 women at the bottom, and then there's her first partner or her ex, and then there's Omar, and then there's Elmi in this picture. And they're all like really happy and really smiling. So all I can say to that is there's no way I'm going to be able to get my current husband and my ex-husband in the same photo and them even remotely appear to be happy. Unless, you know, her ex doesn't find Elmi as a threat, because they're not ever going to be intimate together because they're related. That's the only way that picture makes sense to me. Either that or her first husband or her first partner is like really super forgiving and not a jealous person at all. But I would think that if I split from my husband in 2011 and got back with my ex and started, you know, just kind of picked up where I left off, I think I would have been filing for divorce. I don't think I would have stayed married to this person. And I don't think I would have kept the whole marriage a secret to begin with. Unless, you know, it was my brother and I didn't want people to know, because there's like a serious factor to that. So there's a lot of questions surrounding this, a lot of, you know, around immigration fraud. And in 2020, the FBI said that they were investigating this. So FBI people, like, what's happened to this investigation? Is it like all the others where, you know, you start and you just kind of, oops, I forgot about it, and it just kind of goes away type of deal? Like, aren't you paid American taxpayer dollars to investigate these things? Like, just asking for a friend, you know, like, what's going on? But, you know, apparently there's a lot of immigration fraud in Minnesota stemming all the way back to 2008. With sham marriages, fake death certificates, all kinds of things. And I just saw a recent article about, like, just 7 days ago. There's Operation Twin Shield. Well, there are 275 cases of alleged immigration fraud. So in this operation, they went, you know, knocked on doors, 1,000 doors, and questioned some people. And now there's 275 alleged cases of immigration fraud. With, again, sham marriages, fake death certificates. Surprise! So there's obviously an issue with immigration fraud in Minnesota that, you know, should really start to raise some eyebrows, I guess. So another recent thing Omar is upset about is Trump's Aliens Enemies Act. He's wanting to reenact this act that says, and she says, that it will destroy lives and break up families, and I'm sure it will. You know, you come here illegally, you're here illegally for many years, you start to, you know, go to school, have jobs, have families, have babies. Well, did you ever think you're ever going to get caught? You know, you come into this country illegally, you are a criminal. So what do you think would happen once you got caught? Like, it's kind of common sense, people. You're really gambling here. So she says the Trump's, and these are her words, the Trump's administration immigration policy is a threat to immigrants like criminals. Well, if you're here illegally, aren't you a criminal? And shouldn't you be treated as one? Like, I mean, they kind of go hand in hand at this point. So, like, I have zero problem with the legal immigrants. Well, except for the one. Can you guess who that one is? But, you know, folks, if you come here legally and you do the proper paperwork and you become a naturalized citizen, generally I don't have any problem with you. Unless you're trying to, you know, change our government in your favor or in your country's favor, your home country's favor, then I have a bit of an issue. So like I said before, in 2014 and 15, she filed jointly on taxes with a man she wasn't married to, and while she was married to Elmi. So again, why, Omar? Why have a life with somebody? And when she got caught, she amended her taxes and was off the hook. So I guess my question here is, should she be off the hook? Like, should there be some level of, consequence for filing jointly on taxes to someone you're never married to? Because you do get perks if you're filing jointly. Okay, like your income levels go up. Things are now jointly, and so you are given broader windows for things. So should that be a crime? Who knows? Maybe. Right now it's only a crime if they can prove that you are trying to evade taxes. But why else would you file jointly with someone that you're not married to? I mean, it's just kind of food for thought at this point. I think this definitely talks, I think this definitely shows, the type of person she is and her character. So, Omar says that Americans should pay for the sins of their ancestors. Okay. All right. Well, maybe. But I guess here's my question to you, Miss Omar. Should you? Let's look at your ancestors for a moment. So there are claims and actual proof that Omar's father that he served in the Somalian army, which was ran by the Marxist Bar regime. Okay, so she claims that he was a teacher and an educator. She never mentions that he was a colonel in the army. But I mean, you can put in a search engine and AI will tell you that he was a respected member. He was a respected colonel in the Somalian army under the Bar regime. Well, the Bar regime was a dictatorship. Okay? So a colonel is not a foot soldier. A colonel is kind of high ranking. So while he may not have actively been a part in killing 200,000 Isaki people or Isaac people in an ethnic cleansing in northern Somalia, while he may not have personally raped women, killed children, or tortured people, he had to have known about it and looked the other way. There's no way you're serving in an army for as long as he did, becoming a colonel and not know these things. There's just no way. This is why I suspect they actually fled Somalia, because in 91, the Belarusian groups overthrew the Bar regime. And so I would imagine anybody involved on the Bar side of that regime would have to leave. Otherwise, their lives were probably at stake here. So he actually lived in refugee camps, and Omar talks about this before coming to America. So it sounds like her father had zero issues serving a dictator, right? But she says that her father was very influential in her upbringing. So father in a roundabout way kind of is a dictator, and he's very influential in her upbringing. So therefore, does she have the same dictator mentality? And with that mentality, is she using it in our government to fit her needs? Just kind of food for thought. But yet she's quick to point the finger at us Americans, calling us dictators, of course. So she likes to call Trump a dictator because he ended the USAID funds. And he didn't just end them for Africa or Somalia. He ended them for a lot of different countries, okay? But it did have an impact on her people, Somalia. But, it's kind of wonder if she just wants American money to support her cause in her home country. She has proclaimed in a speech, and you can look it up, it's in Somalians, but there are translations. Of course, she says the translations are wrong or didn't capture exactly what she was trying to say, but I don't know, but it has made headlines that she's Somalian first and Muslim second. Well, Omar, what about American? You're living in America as a naturalized citizen, serving in our government. So don't you think in that speech somewhere you should have mentioned you're American too? Unless you don't really feel like you are American. You're just here as a naturalized citizen to protect your Somalian borders, which she has said publicly that is what she is in our government to do, to protect their borders. Well, what about our borders? Oh, that's right. Our borders you want wide open for all your Somalian friends to come here. I mean, she has no qualms with leaving our borders open for her Somalian friends. She has no qualms with spending American dollars for her cause. She has said very publicly she will use her place in the American government to protect Somalians. She has allegedly held workshops to hide illegal Somalians from deportation. That in itself is a crime. And why isn't that being investigated? I mean, who knows? Like, I just kind of want to know who's protecting this woman at this point. Because it's very clear that her interests lie with Somalians, not with Americans. Because remember, she's Somalian first, Muslim second. And nowhere in that speech did she say she was an American. Now, you have to remember, she is not an American. She is a naturalized citizen. She was not born here. She was not raised here. And, you know, as a naturalized citizen, should these people be in our government at all? Should our government be reserved for people who are born in America? That's another question, I guess, for another day. So I said that she has no qualms with spending American money. And, you know, in 2020, Feeding Our Future program was a big thing. It involved the Safari restaurant in Minnesota. And that restaurant claimed to feed 6,000 kids a day, 7 days a week for over a year. So the Safari restaurant owners donated to Omar's campaign, $5,400 to be exact. Omar even went to the restaurant promoting the program on the news, feeding the children. Oh, it was just such a beautiful day for everybody. It was just so wonderful. But the problem was the owners couldn't account for all the money that they were taking and spending. It didn't add up. So they got in themselves in some hot water, like $250 million worth of hot water. Only $75 million has been recovered. So where's the other $175 million, folks? Where did it go? This is taxpayer money, and it is gone. There were 71 defendants. Only 4 were acquitted. So $175 million between 71 defendants. That is a lot of money. And where is it at? Where did it all go? Omar wants us to believe that she knew nothing about what was going on, even though she took $5,400 that was donated to her campaign. That she disclosed. There may have been more. Who knows? But she wants us to believe that these people, all of a sudden, who had very little, who came into money, didn't start to spend the money, didn't have fancy cars, have nice houses, have, some bling bling going on. She wants us to expect they weren't having dinners at fancy places. And she wants us to expect that she didn't notice any of this. I think when our friends and our donors start to come into some money, we start to ask, hey, where did this money come from? We don't really look the other way. We want to celebrate in their success, right? We want to know how they did it so we could be successful too. But no, apparently she just wants us to believe that nothing was going on. She didn't notice anything. So either she's really dumb or she was complicit in on the scheme. Who knows? Either way, if she is that dumb, she probably shouldn't be in our government. And if she was complicit, then she really shouldn't be in our government. So either way, she probably shouldn't be in our governments. So in 2016, when she entered the House of Representatives in Minnesota, she was worth negative $45,000. So she was in the hole. She had debt. And I believe it was 23 or 24. Her net worth came out as $30 million allegedly. So she wants us to believe that we are dumb and that we can't read her financials. Now, you do need to remember that the financials, there is a range, okay? And I don't remember all the ranges for all the categories, but assets, it could be a $6,000 range to a $50,000 range. That is a huge range. And which I think is kind of ridiculous because we Americans, when we file our taxes, we don't get that huge of a range. We have to kind of narrow it down, way down, so that they know, what our assets are worth, so that they can tax us appropriately. So why doesn't the same apply for House of Representative folks? Why do they get such huge ranges? Why do they get so much leeway? Again, another question that will always be unanswered. So the claim is that most of that money, or allegedly some of that money, is husband's money. Okay, so she married her current husband in 2020. As far as I know, he wasn't wealthy when they got married. Now he has gotten into some business ventures like a vineyard and something else. But I mean, that's pretty aggressive growth in just 3, 4, 5 years. Like that's pretty impressive, even for like someone, that's in tech or something. That's pretty impressive growth in such a short time. So I guess my question is this: did some of that money come from Feeding Our Future program? Now, I don't have proof. It is just a question, just asking for a friend. But I would love for that question to be answered. Where did this money come from? So this next one isn't really thievery. It's more of a money shuffle, something that our government gets away with quite frequently. And it's kind of disgusting that they do get away with it. But her campaign in 2020 or 2019 hired her husband's firm to manage her campaign, and her campaign paid her husband's firm $3 million. So I looked it up, and this is just AI talking, okay? So, because I don't know how much it costs to run a campaign, but I did put it into a search engine, and AI says this. Now, to be clear, I searched, and this is exactly what I typed in. How much does it cost to manage a campaign for a House of Representative candidates? Okay. So according to AI, staff, and this is all upper end. Okay. Staff is $200,000. Advertising is $1 million, and I can see that. Fundraising is $100K. Materials $50,000. Consultants $100,000. Travel $50,000. Legal fees and compliance fees $20,000. And I just tacked on an extra expenses of $80,000 just so we can make it an even $1.5 million. So this is something high end. So why did his firm charge her $3 million? Again, another question that will probably never get answered. After she got reelected, she dropped him like a hot potato. Well, not him. She dropped the firm like a hot potato. So Omar, if you did nothing wrong, why break ties so quickly if you're not guilty of something? And again, this is just my own personal question. I wonder how much of that $3 million is now part of the $30 million. Again, I don't know if anything happened. I'm just, going out on a limb, asking for a friend. That's all. I do think that is a legit question because she has been slapped on the wrist for misusing campaign funds in the past. Okay, so in 2017, she spent campaign funds on out-of-state travel and hotel expenses on 5 occasions. This is public record. She was caught, found at fault, and had to pay money back. Okay. So allegedly her campaign funded some attorney fees to amend her 2014-2015 tax returns. Possibly she spent money out of her campaign to fund her divorce from Elmi. There is allegations that her campaign funded some immigration records. She was ordered to repay and was fined about $4,000. Okay, so like 34 something was what she had to repay, and 500 was the fine. So again, just a slap on the wrist. She didn't dispute any of these allegations. She never said, I didn't do this. I want to clear my name. She didn't argue. She just paid her fine and said, I'm glad it's over. Like, really? If I was accused of stealing, I would say something more than, oh, I'm just glad it's over, and here's the money that you said I took, and here's my fine. I just want it to be done with. Like, I don't know. I would just feel like I would have more to say about it than that. Like maybe, go on a talk show and try and clear my name. I understand just wanting the legalities of it to be over, but I think I would have said more than just, yeah, it's all good. I'm moving on. Especially, I don't know, to me, like, being considered a thief is like one of the worst things that I could be considered. Like, because to me, if you're a thief, you're a liar, you're a cheater. There's so many other things that go on with being a thief. You're not just a thief. You're so many other things, because it goes against your moral character as a person. So in 2020, she advocated for defunding the police. Big surprise there. But she wants her security detail upped because of all the death threats that she gets. Well, Omar, maybe if you weren't such a terrible person, people wouldn't be trying to want to kill you all the time. I mean, that's just kind of my thought process here. If you were an upstanding citizen for Americans that you're voted to protect, maybe people wouldn't want you gone. Like that's just kind of my thought process. But again, she wants, I'm pretty sure since she's in the House of Representatives, the taxpayers get to foot the bill for her upped security. So I think this is how it should work. And again, I'm just some lowly person that doesn't know much of anything. Well, according to Omar, anyway. But I kind of feel like a House of Representatives security detail should stem from the police force. So maybe you take, I don't know, however many you need from that police department and train them up to be your security detail, and they can follow you around Washington. So you have your local police department funding you or protecting you, that your tax dollars are funding, okay? Instead of you get whatever security detail you want at the expense of the taxpayers, but you can say, no, we're going to take money away from the police department so our citizens are not safe. Or if she wants a better security, then maybe she should take some of that $30 million and fund her own security detail. That's, I would be okay with that too. So, I mean, I would think if I had 30 million, I'd be able to pay for my own security detail. But, she still has student loans. She's supposedly worth 30 million, but yet she won't pay on her, she pays the minimum on her student loans. That makes zero sense to me too. I would have had my student loans paid off like the first year I became a House Representative, because they get paid $174,000 a year. So if she was broke and didn't have it in, only had $45,000 in debt, you would think she would have been able to pay that off pretty quick. But again, that's just me, this dumb American having common sense. She likes to go out and say whatever she wants to say, and she wants us Americans to be okay with it. She wants to be able to say that it's okay for people to die and get killed for what they believe and what they think, and that their legacy is not worth remembering and all this other stuff. But so I guess the First Amendment only applies to her. It doesn't apply to everybody else, right? Only she is allowed to say what she wants to say, how she thinks, how she feels, but everybody else, if it goes against what she likes, then forget the First Amendment for them. But, I guess we can say the same thing about her. There's nothing about her legacy that is worth remembering. All she has done is brought hate and division in this country among us Americans. Of course, if you call her out, then you're a bigot, you're a racist, you're anti-Muslim. And no, Miss Omar, I'm none of those things. I'm just anti-you, really. That's just how I feel. She did say the dumbing of the United States has arrived. And she applied that to all Americans, not just politicians. So I can say that about some politicians, especially her, even though she's not American. But, I don't really feel like I'm an idiot. I feel like I have more common sense than her. And I guess if she thinks we're nothing but idiots, why do we keep voting her in? Like, maybe we should stop voting for her. So she has compared Americans to the Taliban and Hamas. She also groups Israel in this, but we're not talking about Israel. Last time I checked, I'm not a terrorist. I'm just a normal person that has to go to work every single day to pay my taxes so that she can spend it however she wants. There are people that have talked about charging her for treason. They have been censored. Danielle Stella and George Buck. Stella was canceled from Twitter, or banned from Twitter, and Buck was removed from his committee. So she finally did get removed off the Foreign Affairs Committee, which I can't disagree with that one bit. She should not be on the Foreign Affairs Committee because it's clear she doesn't care anything about foreign affairs. She just cares about Somalia and Africa. Quite frankly, she should be removed from the Budget Committee as well because it's pretty clear she has an issue with keeping money where it belongs. So Americans, what do you think? Is Ilhan Omar for America, or does she only care about Somalians? Does she deserve a place in our government? Do you think she should be removed from her office? I think there's a petition going around. Leave a comment and let me know your thoughts. Like, what do you think? Does she deserve to stay in our House of Representatives? And until next time, have a good American day.